My little spider outfit, but this is my Soulrend occultist. I just kind of slapped together on a whim. I've been wanting to try Soulrend since, forever, and then I got the buff. I had originally started this as a trickster. Trickster worked out super well, crazy survivability, but the damage is really lackluster. Seemed like a lot of what I did to try to up my damage didn't really work too well. I'm mostly familiar with the lightning kind of skills, scaling the lightning. Mana stacker is a big thing that I really like to do. So this is kind of like my first real attempt at an actual chaos dot kind of style build. I saw the Soulrend buff and just kind of went for it. I kind of put some stuff together in my head, kind of thinking of how I could do it, and went to PoEDB and checked out some cluster stuff. So far it's been working pretty well. I crafted a lot of this stuff myself. I actually got super lucky with this wand. A couple days into League, I believe I picked it up with the Fracture for 50C, and then did the classic the craft with the dense fossils, the aberrant fossils, and the shuddering fossils. I was originally trying to roll the +2, the +1 level of chaos, +1 to all. It's a rough chance to get it with the fracture suffix. Typically you want to do those kinds of things without a fracture on it. I did get the +1 to chaos, plus the projectile speed, which helps out really well. So, it's not as powerful as the +2, but the Fracture Chaos dot multi allowed me to have that as well as the benchcraft of the increased damage over time, the +1 and projectile speed. It all kind of worked out pretty well with the Soulrend, which does have the projectile tag on it, so they get out there a little faster. I picked up the 6 white socket shavs for, I believe it was 3 divines. It wasn't linked. I farmed up a ton of fusers, farmed up the currency for the rest. I believe I paid probably about 2 divines for the extra 800 that I needed to get the 6-link craft on it, so I 6-linked it myself. So I have the Soulrend in here. It's level 24. So I have the level 3 Empower, which I've been farming a ton of, not Legion. Why can't I think of it? Whatever the Tujin stuff is. Expedition. I've been farming a ton of Expedition. I got lucky. Tujin actually had an Empower support, and he gave me 2 Enlightens, which I ended up selling. Kind of kicking myself in the ass for that now. But I have the +2 from the Empower support in there. GMP, I go back and forth on whether or not I want to save up for the Awakened GMP. Obviously it's more damage. It's pretty pricey here on console. I believe being somewhere around 15 divines. I have the Awakened Controlled Destruction, just the spell damage, as you can see in this little tag down here at the bottom. Modifiers to spell damage apply to the skill's damage over time effect, which is nice. So I'm not a crit base. The less crit strike chance doesn't really bother me at all. It's all about that spell damage for me in this Soulrend. I have a cruelty support for the increased damage over time. As you can see, it deals up to 40% more damage over time, based on the amount of damage in the hit which grants it. So the initial hit of Soulrend deals a certain amount of damage. The cruelty then procs off that damage, which in turn applies to my dot multi, which is pretty much what we're after here with Soulrend. I threw in the Awakened Void Manipulation. I bought this one at level 5 for I believe 2, maybe 3 divines. It was uncorrupted. Corrupted it, being greedy, trying to get the level 6 or the quality 23. It kept the quality, it de-leveled it, so I'm currently in the process of re-leveling that one. So that's my 6-link white socket, Chavron's Wrappings. I did throw about 3 divines on it. It was a super low roll. I believe when I got it, it was about 107% increased energy shield. Threw a divine, went down to 105. Threw another divine, went down to 102. Through this last divine, I got the 147 out of 150% increased ES, which jumped me up substantially. I am running low life, so Shavs is mandatory just for the pain attunement. Gives you a huge damage increase. The spell damage applies to the dot multi, so more spell damage, more dots. The crystal belt I had bought pretty early in the league for, I believe, a divine. It was way too good to pass up. I threw the catalysts on it for defense to up the percentage. Haven't really had a chance to throw a divine on it. I've kind of gone back and forth on whether or not I want to try to get this up to the 15%, plus the defense modifier catalyst, which should put me up to 18. I'll show you why I think that later. Well, my buddies invited me to a party. I bench crafted the regenerate energy shield. This is something new I was kind of going for with my big ES. I was trying to get as much regeneration and regeneration rate and faster start of regen, along with Wicked Ward, just to see if it kind of helped. As you'll see here in a little while, I'll show you my Atlas setup. My maps are pretty damn rippy, so I'm just trying to figure out how to incorporate extra survivability. I'm not max block. I am cap res on just about everything, but even my chaos is cap res. So as you can see, I'm over cap on pretty much everything. So my boots, I ended up crafting myself. I got a lucky cold resist roll. I was low. I've just kind of been farming Searing and Eater for the Ickers. I'm just kind of messing around with stuff. These are nothing crazy. You know, your Eater and Searing implicits on these aren't really mandatory. It's not something that's, you know, making or breaking the build. Feel free, you know, just mess around with your Ickers. I ended up getting the regenerate life per second in the Uber Lab, which was nice because I am running Zealot's Oath. So my life regeneration, although it is extremely low, still helps out with that energy shield regeneration per second. The gloves I bought for about 20 chaos with the fractured chaos resistance. Again, I just threw some dense fossils at it, and I ended up getting some pretty big energy shield on it. I was low on fire and chaos res, so as you can see, pretty much anything that has the implicit on it or the benchcraft on it is fire and chaos res. I was able to work some stuff through to where I was able to take some of that off. That's when I put in the regenerate energy shield on my belt, my boots, and my gloves. The resistance, so if you find something with the resistance, these benchcrafts are mandatory. This was strictly something to fill in the resistances that I was lacking. My shield, again, just a ton of dense fossils. I ran this through the delves for quite a while, early before I started really getting into the expedition farming, just to get levels. You know, it's smooth sailing down there in the mines. It's really good for levels. It's really good for your bubblegum currency. That's where I got most of my fusers, my jewelers, through raw jeweler drops and 6-socket drops. So that one, I mean, the base wasn't too bad. The base was maybe 10C. I was just kind of going for the white socket thing, so I didn't have to worry about chromies. Got the super big energy shield pull, 323, as you can see, plus the spell damage, which was huge. Just lucky rolls pretty much all the way around. Most of it was fossil, some of it was chaos spamming. But I do quite a bit of fossil crafting as well as some essence spams, but I didn't hit too much on the essence spams, so most of this is just fossil. Now my ring here is an incredibly lucky chaos spam. I was sitting on roughly 2 divines worth of chaos. PC, that's about console, that's about 300 chaos. I got a super lucky roll. I had this base, the Iolite ring, just drop in a map. I knew that I had wanted Iolite rings for my future crafting. I believe I was just running resistance 2 stones at this time. And I ended up getting the Iolite bases and maps, both of them. So I ended up buying the Crusader orb for both of them. And I ended up ulti-rolling the increased maximum energy shield and regaled it, and I got the cold resistance, but Well, not that cold resistance you see now, but cold resistance. I didn't like the Regal. I didn't have any imprint beasts at the time, nor did I really want to go through the hassle of doing the whole prefix, suffix, can't be changed, beastcraft, add suffix, remove prefix, blah, blah, blah. So I chaos spammed it, and I ended up getting this, which is incredibly lucky. It's T1 energy shield flat. I got the T1 percentage off of Crusader. I got the T3 cold and the T1 lightning. The rarities, whatever, but I'm too cowardly to try to annul it to get rid of the rarity, so that's what we have. The amulet I bought really early in the league for a divine. There was a guy, this was actually from my trickster. A lot of this gear is from my trickster. My trickster did an incredible job of farming currency to get the witch going. It made the transition much smoother into occultist because I had all the gear waiting for my occultist at the time, and then most of this is stuff that I've gotten since I started the occultist. Roughly 2 weeks ago, I believe, is when I started this occultist. It had the percentage evasion, the T2 percentage evasion, and the T1 percentage max ES, which was huge on the trickster. It was a big reason why I bought it, was for the evasion and the ES, because I was running Ghost Shroud on my trickster. And it has the +1 level of all chaos skill gems. So between my wand, which has the +1, between my amulet, which also has the +1, and between the level 3 empower support, I am running a level 24 quality 23 Soulrend. I corrupted the Soulrend at 2020, so as soon as I hit 20, I had it qualityed, reset, leveled it back up to 20, corrupted it, got the 23. No big deal. 21 would have been nice. Soulrend is a spell, so it scales incredibly well with levels. The 25 probably would have been a good chunk of extra damage, but the 24 does the job regardless. So the ring we went over, the amulet we went over. This one was actually a very, very lucky Awakener orb. So I had a amethyst ring with good chaos res on it, double chaos res obviously from the implicit, as well as a suffix of chaos res. I had alt rolled it for despair on hit. I believe I got a really low life roll. It might have been like 8 life, and then on the Regal I got the chaos resistance, which was huge. So I ran that for a while, and then once I started my occultist, I was able to then get the Crusader orb for the Iolite ring that I had found in a map. Slammed it. I just alt rolled the percentage ES. Regaled it. I bought the Awakener orb. I awakened the amethyst ring for the despair on hit, and I threw it onto this Iolite ring. And this is the outcome. The 5 to 10 physical damage was an exalt slam. I got impatient. There's a couple other things I could have done. I could have rolled, cannot roll attack modifiers and slammed it, and most likely gotten a life roll on it, which would have been okay. Not the worst, not the best. Some spell damage from Crusader would have also been nice. But I got the fizz damage to attacks. No big deal. We got the huge, the ES roll, the T3 flat ES. We got the T1 despair on hit. We got the max percentage energy shield roll from Crusader. So that was a very lucky Awakener orb. My RNG has been very kind to me this league. The helmet I did craft myself, again, just using dense fossils. I got the essences. Okay, so this is one of the essence ones. I was mistaken. So I essence spammed it, got the T1 percentage energy shield. I got the lowest roll on the flat ES, but it's not the worst. It could have been a much lower energy shield roll had I not used I believe it's Deafening Essence of Woe was the spam. I just bench crafted the highest percentage energy shield craft I could get. I got the lucky cold resist. Anything you can get resistance on will help you out immensely. As you can see from my boots and my gloves, it took me quite a while. For a long time it was my boots, my gloves, my belt, this ring here, and this amulet all had fire, chaos, lightning, chaos, cold, chaos. It had a ton of resistance benchcraft on it. But that again was a very lucky Awakener orb. If you can find something like this, it might run you a pretty penny. I can't say for sure. My guess is on console for the right build. If Chaos was a huge meta build right now, I could probably get upwards of 8 divines, which would pretty much double what I spent on it. Right now, I say for the right build, I might be able to get back what I paid for all the materials to make it. But it's perfect for my build, so there's no reason for me to sell it. Okay, so my flask's pretty typical. I don't necessarily need the mana flask unless I'm running a cannot regen map, which is fairly consistent, more often than I would like to, honestly. But it's just immunity to bleeding, immunity to corrupted blood, which I'll go over in a second, which I don't necessarily need, but if I decide to swap out my jewels in my passive tree, which we'll go over, I will need this. This is huge. Typically my regen can handle upwards of 8 stacks of corrupting blood, and it can take bleeding almost no problem unless I take a serious savage hit. Then it kind of messes with my regen a little bit, but it's not typically the end of the world for this build. Again, just another mana flask, just in case I'm having to spam super fast in the no regen maps. These prefix and suffix aren't any big deal. The reduced mana cost is nice, but I can typically mana regen through. It does help in the no regen maps having the reduced cost of skills. My flasks, I'm just running 2 quicksilvers because as you can see on my boots, I have 0 move speed, so I'm kind of just like a turtle, which is fine for this kind of play style as I chose to play it. It's just kind of shooting stuff out in front of you. As you move, just kind of take a couple steps, fling a couple of Soulrends out there, listen for some pops. Since we're occultist, we do have Profane Bloom, so you can hear the pops, know if there's enemies in front of you, as long as they don't leap on you. So a Quicksilver Flask, I just rolled it for increased effect. That's all I was looking for. The reduced effect of shock means nothing because I'm running Purity of Elements, so I'm immune to shock anyways. And then I just used the Enkindle Orbs for the 65% increase effect. So this flask makes us zoom. We are super fast. Again, same thing with this flask, this Quicksilver. Chance to avoid being stunned does nothing. Through the Occultist Ascendancy, I did go for the can't be stunned with energy shield, the energy shield regen. It's a fairly recent change that I did in the build, as I was running the extra curse. Before I got this ring here, I was running Mark of Submission with the Temporal Chains in it. Temporal Chains is huge for Soulrend because it allows your dots to last a little longer because of the debuff and everything expiring slower on the enemies. So before I got this, I had the Mark of Submission with a level 20 quality 20 Temporal Chains in it. I rolled this ring, swapped out. As far as I can tell, it wasn't a major DPS loss. It was hardly noticeable at all, maybe on the bigger bosses like Eater of the Worlds, Searing Exarch, things like that. Uber Elder, there was a noticeable difference, although I did have a hand in defeating Uber Elder. And then the Sulfur Flask, just the classic 40% more damage, more dots. I just rolled it for the increased effect. Again, it's pretty much, as you can see, all I was looking for in these is increased effect. Again, the block and stun recovery does nothing, as I am not a block build. You can see over here on the right, my chance to block attack damage is only 25%. I am not glancing blows. I have 0 skill points invested into any kind of block. So that really does nothing. It was just the increased effect. That was just a side effect of the rolls we got. No big deal. So we've gone over all the gear. The implicits on this on my helmet from Searing and Eater were just lucky shots. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I got the increased spell damage with the unique enemy, which helps a lot for a boss. Again, anything that increases your spell damage will increase your damage over time, which is good for us, right? The cast speed is nice. Soulrend feels kind of bad with low cast speed. I had experimented with using a haste, I didn't have the dex to get it past level 9. Once it was level 9, it was a significant difference in feeling and just how fast you can get the Soulrends out there. At that point, I did run into a little bit of mana issues, but my flasks held me up no problem. I never ran out of mana flasks running haste for the cast speed. But the spell damage was nice. Cast speed is always nice. Cast speed doesn't affect your damage really in any way other than you getting your Soulrends out faster. So I do believe that's pretty much everything. Those implicits mean nothing. I'm still just kind of Icar spamming my gloves just to see what I can get. +1 to max cold resistance is always nice. Probably be a lot nicer if I was doing the classic Aegis Aurora Melding of the Flesh combination. But I am not, so no big deal. Just a little extra chaos resistance for those negative resistance map mods. So my passive tree, as you can see, is fairly basic. This is the setup I am running now. This is not the leveling setup for the Witch. I believe when I was leveling, I came up into spell damage. I got the Arcanist Dominion for spell damage, then came over and up. You know, I got into the ES stuff. A lot of it's the same, it's just some minor things. One difference I did make initially, I didn't have any of this cluster set up over here, which we'll go over in a second. I was spec'd over here for all this life energy shield stuff. I came down over here for the recover energy shield on kill. Soul Thief is a big one. Once I got my regen up high enough to where I felt comfortable with it, I did away with the energy shield on kill. Typically that doesn't help you with your bossing anyway unless they have ads, which most of them really don't, especially once you get into the Eater, the Exarch, you know, Shaper, Elder, any of the Cortex or synthesized maps like that don't spawn ads. So, starting off, I just came over here to the left. I respec'd these points. Again, I pulled out all this. Spec'd over here, got a couple extra points off the respec. I came up initially and I got this big energy shield tree. The mastery for this one is the Discipline Mana Reservation Efficiency. So in this build, reservation efficiency is key. As you can see on my amulet, I have allocated Charisma, which is a big one for Righteous Fire at the moment. It cost me 2 golds and some other cheap oil. We can actually look that up right now so I can tell you exactly. That is the aura effect node here. Opalescent and 2 golds. Opalescents aren't too bad on console. I believe the golds were about 80 chaos apiece. The opalescent oil, I believe, was around 30 at the time. So I allocated that just because the reservation efficiency, as you can see here in a little while, will be major. It's almost mandatory. So I got this big energy shield one, the discipline reservation through this mastery. I immediately came up. Now I did some play testing with this chaos tree here. In between the chaos damage and the penetration. Damage over time builds do not rely on penetration. I know for like Ignite, Chaos multi, penetration really doesn't do you a whole lot as long as you can scale it high enough. It won't scale with penetration. The initial hit of Soulrend will. The first hit that initiates your damage over time will penetrate a ton of chaos resistance. So possibly your initial hit could be bigger, but I'm not 100% if that'll affect your dot multi for your Soulrend. I instead opted in for the increased effect of Withered. This was suggested to me by my buddy Thoughtless Chevy, who was messing around with the poison concoction build, and the increased effect of Withered did wonders for his poison damage over time. Obviously it makes them take more chaos damage, which is huge. So I just kind of opted in for the increased effect and the slower expiration. I have my Wither on a spell totem, multi-totem setup in my gloves. The quality doesn't do too much. It's a placement speed thing. I haven't really struggled with placement speed a whole lot. The quality didn't seem super important to me. I did hit it with a faster casting support gem as well, just because the faster you can get your Wither stacks up, the better. And then just the 20. I got the +2 from my globals, from my amulet and my wand. Wither is a chaos spell, so it's affected by the +1 to all chaos skills. So I opted in for the increased effect of Withered. When I took it off, I noticed a major damage loss. It seemed like the speed at which my dots brought the enemy down had suffered quite significantly. So I spec'd out of Heart of Darkness, went back up here for Corruption, and I also got the Chaos Mastery for the increased effect of Withered for a total of 55% effect of Withered, which is huge because if they take 6% up to 15 times, that's a 90% increase in chaos damage. You add that with another 55%, it's a big amount. So I got into that. I believe initially I came over here into some of these life and mana nodes. I was initially thinking of doing a mana stacker Soulrend occultist for the dark ideation cluster jewels. I ended up not going for that. Zealot's Oath is something fairly new. I was not spec'ing the Zealot's Oath for a very long time. That was just to kind of help with this whole regen idea that I had. I am running a stone golem somewhere around here. There we are, a level 21 stone golem. I believe I bought the level 21 for 5 chaos or so. It wasn't too expensive at all. Not a lot of people running stone golem these days. I then came over here and I immediately got into this entire aura effect and reservation efficiency tree. I got the 20% increased life reservation of efficiency of skills, which wasn't initially until I decided to go with low life. I am achieving my low life by running my malevolence and my purity of elements. No, I take that back. My clarity and my discipline on an arrogance support. So arrogance gives you the increased aura effect, which is beautiful. It makes your discipline, your clarity, everything. Without clarity, I did have mana issues. Like I said, the no regen maps. I don't necessarily struggle with mana with my flasks, but if it wasn't for my flasks, I would have some major mana issues. The discipline is huge because you're getting the 19% effect strictly through the gem, not even including the trees that I went into. So I immediately got this reservation tree here. I spec'd into the life reservation. I believe I spec'd out of the increased area of effective aura skills for that one. This is fairly dex and strength starved. As you can see, I have 112 dex, which is just barely enough to run this level 20 greater multiple projectiles. So unless you can find a spot to get dex on another pair of gear, perhaps you don't need the fire chaos resistance. Maybe you get some lucky rolls and you get some good chaos res on your boots. I was running the chaos resistance boots for a while, which overcapped me, so there was no need for these. But if you find some chaos resistance and some other really good resistance gear, then you can do away with these. You can then bench craft the strength and the dex, as you can see like I did on my amulet. I added the strength. That was to take away this 30 strength node over here to the right of the witch. I am not able to unspec either of these big dex nodes, nor am I able to take out this 30 strength node here. I came down and I got into the energy shield and the mana. That is for the mastery here of the 3% max mana as extra maximum energy shield. I don't have a ton of mana. I'm not mana stacking. As you can see, I only have 1783 mana, which is no small amount, but it is no mana stacker amount. But it does add up to quite a bit of energy shield in the long run. This is a fairly new thing that I did with the recharge and the regen stuff that I was trying to figure out. I spec'd out over here into the faster start of energy shield recharge and the increased energy shield recharge rate, which basically just makes it to where you regen more energy shield at once. Energy shield recharge and energy shield regen are two completely different stats. So the recharge rate is kind of like your life leech. You up your life leech rate or your stacks of life leech, however that works, the more life leech you get at once. It's basically the same with energy shield. The higher your recharge rate, the more energy shield you get once it once it does kick in, the faster start of energy takes the base. I believe it's 2 seconds without taking damage before your recharge actually kicks in. Faster rate of recharge will decrease that time significantly. Here it's just the mastery for regenerate. Again, like I said, I got into this when I was thinking of the regeneration energy shield. Since I'm not block, this is pretty much my only way of regenerating energy shield. I have no ES on block recovery. Over here is actually a very lucky corruption my friend had given me because I was running a spreading rot for my Vol Blight. He knew I was running it. It was a lower base roll for the chaos damage. I believe it was the minimum 8%. Okay, so just above the minimum 7%. He got this, corrupted it, got the lucky corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you, which was a big deal for me at the time. Having to run my anti-bleed. At the time, I believe I was running an anti-bleed life flask because it was prior to my low life switch. A corrupted blood, if you go low life, will not make your build. This regen where I'm at now can typically, like I said, handle upwards of 8 stacks of corrupting blood, but just not having to worry about it is always quality of life, right? So coming over here, I just got into some mana and some spell damage. The increased spell damage per 100 maximum mana up to 40%. So I am sitting at a roughly 34% extra spell damage, which increases the damage over time, as that is one of the perks of Soulrend. So 1783 mana, 2% per 100, 17, 2 times 17, 34% increase in spell damage. I believe. I may be mistaken if my math is wrong. Please feel free to correct me. Again, over here into some mana regeneration, some max mana regeneration, pretty typical stuff. Come over here. The faster start of energy shield recharge rate, again, was huge. It feels significantly better with the faster restart stuff that I had picked up. This big percentage ES is too good to pass up. Some small percentage ES stuff here. I did come over, I picked up the Wicked Ward, so when my recharge does start, if I take damage, it won't be interrupted. So typically, if without this node, say you're running a big energy shield build, you take a big hit, you run away, your recharge starts, so you're getting your energy shield back. Let's say you blow up a porcupine and you get hit by one of those little spikes, it will immediately stop your energy shield recharge. Not your regen, but your recharge. So Wicked Ward allows this to go through it, as long as it is started recently. Recently, typically in Path of Exile, refers to the last 4 seconds. I recharge my energy shield much faster than 4 seconds. There is the lesser energy shield recharge rate, which is no big deal because we picked up a bunch. So as you can see, I have 10% here, 15% here, and then this node over here above Wicked Ward. There's another 10% rate, plus the 20% energy shield recharge start, which is what we're looking for. So I have the 20% plus the 10% plus the 15%, so 45%. So even through Wicked Ward, we're getting a 5% faster recharge rate. There is gear that can run it, typically a lot of your energy shield gear. You can get a roll for faster energy shield recharge rate, or start of. This one here is just the light radius based on energy shield. It's pretty mandatory for anything that goes low life. Your light radius isn't something you always notice. For me, when I'm running the mines, it was huge. Running low life, I believe I am under 10% of my life. I am, so my light radius would be extremely small without this mastery. The 30% increase is beautiful. The Wicked Ward we discussed. So I have the big dex nodes, as I said before, are unable to be done away with at this time. I am unable to sacrifice a benchcraft in my gear. Well, I'm sure I could. I could probably, just mana regen, reduced mana cost. This is all kind of quality of life stuff for me. If you didn't want to get into the big nodes, say you wanted the extra 3 passive points, you have the open suffix. you could most likely just benchcraft your dexterity and your strength on some gear if you have the open suffix. Coming down, I did get into the pain attunement, which is more spell damage, which is huge. Again, spell damage over adds to your damage over time, which I know I'm pretty much a broken record here, but can't stress it enough. More spell damage, more damage over time equals better feel. I did come into this life and energy shield node here below your pain attunement, mostly for the 3% max life as extra maximum energy shield. So we are getting more energy shield based off of our mana as well as our life. I'm not stacking either. I haven't tried to stack either. This is mostly base stuff. Most, if not all, of my gear has 0 life on it. It does have some kind of mana regen, but mostly my flat mana, my flat life is very, very scarce. This is all just off base stuff, so I'm only at 1400 life. 3% of that gets transferred as extra maximum energy shield, which really adds up to roughly 500. So I don't have much life, but I'm getting an extra 500 energy shield off of it, which is huge. Again here, I just come down and get these. I did get the Watcher's Eye for the 7%, which rolls up to 10%, I believe. Maximum mana is maximum energy shield while afflicted by clarity, which I am running for the mana. So overall, between the Mastery and the Watcher's Eye, I have 10% of my mana as maximum energy shield, which gives me a big chunk. As you can see here, if I undo my clarity, I go down to 10,959 energy shield. With my clarity, I go up to 1,300. So my mana alone on a damn near minimum roll, Watcher's Eye, gives me roughly 400 energy shield. The unaffected while bleeding, while affected by malevolence, is nice. Preferably, you would prefer the dot multiplier while affected by malevolence. I believe with Righteous Fire being as big as it is for at least console right now, these are going for roughly 12 divines. Not something I felt the need to spend at the time for the Watcher's Eye. I picked up this one for, I believe it was 70, maybe 80 C. I'm not running Determination, so that doesn't really affect us too much. This is an Uber Elder Watcher's Eye, so the way you can tell, Watcher's Eyes will come with 2 or 3 mods on them. The 2 mods are from your regular Elder fight. The 3 mods are from your Uber Elder mod or fight. So the 3 mods typically cost more just because they're more expensive to run. People aren't really farming Uber Elder a whole lot on console. So they typically just cost more. Occasionally you can get those super nasty triple roll, perfect for your build Watcher's Eyes. Shop around, just price check stuff. Sometimes you find some cool people, end of league, mid league, just kind of throwing stuff in there for cheap, because occasionally there are people who just farm it like it's nothing. That's what they do. They're looking for the big, 100, 150 divine Watcher's Eye. This one was not even close, but the bleed or unaffected by bleed while affected by malevolence is nice. It's just another quality of life thing, one more thing you don't have to worry about. So we are ailment immune through Purity of Elements, we are corrupting blood immune through the corrupted spreading rot, and we are bleed immune while affected by malevolence, which we do run. Again, just coming down here into all this energy shield stuff, it's pretty much just all flat ES and mana and reservation efficiency, as you can see in my skill tree. Now, where is the damage coming from? The damage is coming from the cluster setup, which by no means is min-maxed. Oh, before I forget, over here, just another small reservation efficiency tree right here, the increased effect, the reservation efficiency of skills, as well as more increased effect. So we have a ton of increased effect of auras from skills in this tree, which adds a lot to the discipline, to the Purity of Elements. Purity of Elements is actually a big reason, if not the only reason, I am res capped. And so as you can see, if I undo my Purity of Elements, My resistances are pretty garbage, especially my fire. My cold is capped. I just ended up getting lucky, I guess, and got a ton of cold resistance on pretty much all my gear. The fire resistance is really where I struggled. I suppose if I didn't run Period of Elements, I could pretty much find a way around this. I would probably sacrifice quite a bit of energy shield if I was looking for the resistance suffixes as well. Typically on console, triple resistance gear, plus any kind of defense, whether it be life, high armor percentage, especially high energy shield percentage or flat, runs for a minimum of a divine. So once I throw on my Purity of Elements again, you can see I'm pretty much overcap on everything. Purity of Elements does not affect chaos resistance. This is strictly through gearing and cluster jewels. Excuse me. So my cluster jewel setup, getting into this now, I just went over here into the mana one because the mana is giving me energy shield, and the elemental damage one over here. Before you get to these cluster setups over here, these ones do nothing for us. Chaos and chaos damage over time is unaffected by elemental damage, as it is not an element. So my large cluster jewel, I did find these. I was farming delirium heavily in the beginning of the league. It was pretty much my farm strat, was to run deliriums. I got quite a few of these cluster jewels through my delirium farming. I just picked out the best ones that I had of the highest item level. This one's only 79. Again, just chaos spams on these cluster jewels with the nerf to harvest. I haven't really messed with the harvest crafting too much. I ran maybe 2 of the harvest troves all league long. So just a good chaos spam. Like I said, my RNG has been very kind to me this league with my chaos spams. So I got the increased attack and cast speed with chaos skills, which affects the Soulrend. Like I said, cast speed is not mandatory, but it feels much, much better with high cast speed. I got the Unholy Grace, which is the skill effect duration. Soulrend is a duration gem tag, as you can see up top. So skill effect duration affects how long it travels out into the world. Increased chaos damage, of course, is perfect. I got the Unholy Grace for the cast speed and the chaos damage, so I'm getting a total of 13% cast speed just through my cluster jewel. Add that on top of the 8% from my helmet, a total of 21% cast speed. You could skyrocket this significantly if you get, a cast speed wand. It won't do anything for your damage other than getting your Soulrends out faster. So you can see this has the 39 implicit spell damage on the Prophecy Wand. Plus I got fairly lucky. I wouldn't say insanely lucky. It is only a T3 roll and it's pretty minimum. But nonetheless, the 80% spell damage feels nice. The cast speed wands, you might be able to... With the fossil crafting, you're pretty much guaranteed for the spell damage. I'm not quite sure how you could fit in a cast speed other than a bench craft. As far as I know, the fossil crafting doesn't guarantee you any kind of cast speed with your crafting. For the medium, it's just 4 passive, increased damage over time. This was one of the more unlucky chaos spams. I spent probably 60 chaos rolling this, trying to get one like this, the Vile Reinvigoration and the Student of Decay. These are not min-maxed by any means. The intelligence is nice, more intelligence, more flat energy shield. So the +3 to intelligence, not terrible. Even though it's only the 3, I'm fairly certain that's at least a flat 1 before the percentage modifiers to my energy shield overall. The Vile Reinvigoration is pretty, I wouldn't say mandatory, but it is probably one of the best in slot, if not the best in slot for this build that I threw together. It has the increased damage over time, plus the percentage energy shield, plus the 2% regeneration if you've killed an enemy recently. Again, recently in Path of Exile refers to the last 4 seconds. Soulrend, you are blowing up mobs. So you are always pretty much keeping an uptime on that 2% regeneration for Vile Reinvigoration. The Student of Decay is the Chaos Resistance, damage over time. Again, I wouldn't necessarily say it's best in slot for a Soulrend build. For me, I was trying to cap my Chaos Resistance. Best in slot for that style, as it gives you best of both worlds. Gives you Chaos Resistance, don't have to worry about it on your gear. You're not getting one-popped by those stupid toxic balls that float over your head. And the damage over time. The small nodes, again, super lucky Chaos spam. I believe I put 2C on this one. I got the Chaos Resistance, the increased damage, the Dexterity, which, like I said previously, this is very attribute starved in terms of Dexterity and Strength. So anywhere we can get it, we will take it. And I also got the Energy from Not Notable, which was nerfed, I believe, 2 leagues ago. It used to give you 100 energy shield flat. They nerfed it down to 70% or 70 flat. Still massive with your percentage modifiers. The increased energy shield recharge rate is exactly what I was looking for, so that fits in perfectly. On this medium over here, again, I was looking for Vile Reinvigoration, Student of Decay. If I got a Student of Decay on there, I would be able to take off a Fire and Chaos Resistance and perhaps roll a higher single Fire roll and maybe sacrifice a little bit of Chaos Resistance for a better suffix on either my boots or my gloves. Most likely my gloves. I believe you can benchcraft cast speed. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100%. I do believe though. So the damage over time nodes, just mana regeneration, which always helps. Like I said, I'm not starved for mana unless I'm in a no regen map, in which case my flasks carry my mana cost. Vile Reinvigoration, we went over. These do stack, so I'm getting a total of 4% if I've killed an enemy recently, which is huge. As you can see here, 11-3 energy shield, 4% plus the 2% from the mastery, and then another energy from not, a big dex, flat dex, and then the 5% increased damage. I believe those are T2. Okay, so the damage is a T2 and the flat dex is a minimum T3. Those can get higher. Again, not mandatory to get those. It just helped out my build, as this build is very starved for attributes. Energy from not, we have gone over the 70, so I'm getting a total of 140 energy shield flat from these small clusters, as well as 30% increased energy shield recharge rate, which is very nice for what I was trying to accomplish with this build. Let's see, what else can we go over? The Ascendancy. So, the Ascendancy for the Occultist. My first pick was to go down here into Void Beacon. The nearby enemies have -20 to Chaos Resistance, and they cannot reduce or regenerate life. The 100% reduced life regen isn't a percentage, so, well, it is, but it makes it to where they cannot. It's not the same as reservation efficiency, where if they're regenerating 150 life, it cuts it down to 75. It doesn't matter how much life they regenerate. If you are nearby, that is null and void. Void Beacon. I get it. Secondly, I went down here. I got the +60 to Chaos Resistance, which is huge. It basically makes it to where the Katava reset, the -30 each time you buy or beat Katava, does not count. Initially it's huge. It does give you 30% Chaos Resistance because you can pick this up before you beat him for the second time. The Withered for 15 seconds is very nice in case you're not able to cast your Wither totems in time and you just kind of hang around. You're getting your 15 stacks of Withered over 15 seconds, which can be nice. The hindered enemies that deal reduced damage over time is big. I'm not 100% on Wither hindering the enemies. I do know the Vol Blight hinders which is big. And then the third one, I went over here for Profane Bloom so that I could curse with my Despair on hexproof enemies, and also the Explosion. Who doesn't love explodey builds? There's a reason GGG nerfed the chest piece to the ground. Initially, as I was stating before, I did have the Malediction for the additional curse, the increased effect, and the Malediction itself, which makes your enemies deal 10% reduced damage and take 10% increased damage. The damage reduction is very nice. The increased damage that they take is always, always nice, no matter what build you're playing. I did have the Mark of Submission with the Temporal Chains in it for the additional curse. I got my big ES percentage flat ES Crusader ring. I swapped out my Mark of Submission for that. I then came over here and I got Vile Bastion for the flat energy shield recharge per second. Or regenerate, not recharge, I'm sorry. Which does scale to a percentage. And also the other 2%, so that's a total of 8% between the two clusters, and the Mastery and Vile Bastion. So my clusters are giving me 4 if I've killed recently, which unless you're doing a boss, you're pretty much always killing recently. The Mastery, which gives me 2%, and also this Vile Bastion, which gives me another 2%. Per enemy you have killed recently, up to 10%. So I'm getting quite a bit more. Cannot be stunned while you have energy shield is huge. So before I picked up this, I did have the energy shield mastery for energy shield, which says stun threshold is based on 50% of energy shield instead of life. Running low life, you will be stun locked permanently unless you get the Pantheon, which says you cannot be stunned if you've been stunned or blocked a stunning hit in the past 2 seconds. For low life, or even for minimal life or ES builds, the Soul of the Brine King is pretty much king. And I do believe that's about it. There's no real reason to come down here into Frigid Wake. There's no way to convert your chaos damage to cold damage. There was no reason for me to run any kind of cold damage during the leveling process. Before I got the Void Beacon, I was running the, I can't think of it. It's a cold skill, but it reduces their life regeneration by 75%. You might know better than me. I don't run it very often. And that is my passive tree as well as my ascendancy setup. This is just the one I have now. This isn't necessarily the one I used while leveling. It is very similar, but it is not exact. If you level with it, feel free to just kind of play around and then respec later with some regrets as we call them. No regrets, not even a single letter. So I am running Malevolence, I have Clarity, I have Purity of Elements, Discipline, and Vitality. So since I am running Zealot's Oath, my Vitality, since it's life regeneration, is applied to my energy shield instead. I'm running low life. There's no reason for me to regenerate life. If my energy shield gets depleted, more often than not, 99% of the time, I am already dead. The Vitality itself, I was messing around with Determination a little bit. It doesn't give me much. I believe I sat at about 18% physical damage reduction. I have no armor percentages in my passive tree, so it doesn't do much for me. I don't have the strength to get it any higher, nor do I have the desire to spec into strength nodes or craft strength for something that I felt was not extremely beneficial to my build. I had the minion life support on my stone golem just to help him survive a little longer. Sometimes he does get one-shotted by some of the bigger stuff. With it, it seems like he does stick around a little longer. In my helmet, I have my level 20 controlled destruction, my efficacy for the more damage over time, and the skill effect duration. Just a portal gem. I had the gem slot open. I hate carrying around portal scrolls. I hate farming for portal scrolls. Portal gem is usually the very first thing I buy in League Start. They typically sit on console around 5 to 10 chaos, depending on the day of League Start. I have my Vol Blight cast with controlled destruction and efficacy, just for that little bit of extra damage. The Vol Blight, I believe, hinders. If we read a little bit here, hindered enemies take 20% increased chaos damage. So I do believe it does hinder. My shield, it's more just malevolence, purity of elements, vitality. These are my 3 mana auras here. With the reservation efficiency, I am able to have 1783 mana and still have 522 left to play with. I am unable to cast in here as I am a spider. My portal gem, my Soulrend only costs me 123 mana, and my mana regen per second is 160. So I am fairly comfortable with the mana cost to mana regen. I may run out if I'm spamming a boss and not really in the need to do a lot of manual moving around, but the cost is not too bad at all. This tooltip damage is not even close, as I'm sure everybody knows, to what the actual damage is through POB. I am without a desktop or laptop, so I'm unable to run the numbers through POB to see the actual damage. My Vol Blight, I have my Wither Totem, cast time 0.18 seconds, so it's getting 5.7 casts a second. That is 3 seconds of Wither Totem, just under 3 seconds of Wither Totems to get the full stack of Wither, which has the 55% increased effect on it. Flame Dash, again, just the king of movement skills. Hard to make a build without Flame Dash for me, unless I'm running dual daggers, claws, etc., in which case I do prefer Whirling Blades. My regular Blight, I never use that. It's strictly for the Vol Blight over here. My Stone Golem, of course, he gives me 110 life regen a second, which just adds to the energy shield through Zealot's Oath. So my regeneration is 656 a second. That is not my recharge rate, that is just my base regeneration. So if I take under 656 damage, my energy shield goes nowhere. If I take that, my energy shield goes nowhere. If I take over, it comes up pretty quick. Anytime I'm in a pickle, so let's say I take a savage hit, I get knocked down to about 7k ES. I'm still not really stressed about dying. 7k ES is still a huge pool, but I do typically just kind of dip out of the damage area. So you can see I'm recharging 6,803.2 a second, which is huge. So I'm out of battle for maybe about a second. My recharge kicks in, I'm full, I'm back in, I'm ready to go. Let's get ready to rumble mobs. And that is pretty much it for all of my skills. Here, as I went over, I have my clarity, my discipline, and my arrogance support for the life reservation to get the low life proc. And then just flame dash, had the spare opening in my boots. That's where I decided to throw my flame dash at. Now, my atlas setup, as you can see, I am 115 out of 115, so my map atlas is completed. I do have all 4 void stones. Like I said, I did have a hand in the Uber Elder. I hadn't tried it solo. I'm 60% sure I could have beaten him by myself. I did end up dying with the extra member in my party. As we all know, extra members in the party make the bosses just a little more difficult. But all in all, it wasn't too bad of a fight. The Maven fight was a purchase for 60 chaos. I have not fought Maven enough to get a really good grasp on her fight. I've watched a ton of YouTube videos. I've tried it a small handful of times. Every single time I just get ripped to shreds. typically during the memory game. So rather than waste all my XP, I had the extra chaos. Somebody was selling a boss carry service, so I just purchased the boss carry service for the 4th Voidstone. So my Atlas tree setup is fairly rippy. I am currently running the Grand Design Atlas strategy, so it is the 1% pack size per allocated notable. I am not 100% if this is an optimal Atlas tree setup for this. This was just the best way to kind of incorporate the things that I wanted to farm, the things that I wanted to show up in my maps, and the things that I like and enjoy running. This game is all about having fun. I feel like a lot of people forget that in the search for divines per hour. I have found I make much more divines per hour if I'm enjoying the game, having fun, and I am much more likely to stick around the league for a longer period of time. So I am running the Grand Design, where your small Atlas passives grant you nothing. So all of these do not matter. These are merely a means to the end. They get you where you want to go. They provide no statistical bonuses. The pack size per notable. So your notables do still give you the bonus, as well as increase your pack size. I'll run a quick map here in a minute just to kind of show you what the pack size typically looks like with this Grand Design setup. Bigger pack size obviously means more monsters, which means more drops, which means more XP, as long as you're not dying a lot like I do. Like I said, this is a fairly rippy setup. I have both of the Eater and the Searing Exarch ones. I am running Word of Exarch for the Embers and the additional Possessing Flame Wraith, as well as Wrath of the Cosmos. Do not take Wrath of the Cosmos if you want experience. If you're trying to level your character, do not take this. This is not a notable. This is what is considered a keystone. This will not affect your Grand Design. This is strictly for me, farming my Eldritch currencies. As I said earlier in the video, I'm just kind of spamming my gear just to see if anything nice hits, and if it fits my build, I will run it. But this does cause a lot of deaths. The 25% chance to be duplicated is wonderful. I have come out of maps with upwards of 20 of the Grand Eldritch Ichors. The 25% increased damage is the thing that will kill you the most. So if you hit 5 altars and you like all 5 of them, that's 125% increased damage you're taking from all enemies. It's not just your Exarch mobs, it's everything in your map. All your enemies are dealing 125% increased damage to you, which is insane if you roll the crit multi, the crit strike, if you get the increased damage, the increased move speed, cast speed, attack speed, all of that. This Wrath of the Cosmos will fuck your day up. The 25% chance for the lesser and greater to drop as grand is beautiful. As I said, that's exactly what I'm farming. Also over here, I came into the Eater stuff. I got the Rampant Growth, which has the duplication percentage, as well as the additional touching tentacle mass. I came down here, I got your Eldritch Gaze for the additional downside and the increased effect of upsides. Now these two together are insane. These two by themselves will mess up your day. This is a very, very juicy strategy to run both of these together. I have not leveled in a while since I spec'd both of these in, but I love hitting those walls. I feel like if you hit a wall in a map that I'm running and you can get over it, you'll have no issue running all the content that the game has to offer. A lot of my friends that I play with just outright refuse to run maps with me because they do not like dying all the time and wasting all of my portals. So I came over here into the map boss stuff, just the additional basic currency item. It's just a notable that adds to the Grand Design. No big deal, just something I got into. Since I'm farming Searing and Exarch, might as well get a little extra currency since you have to defeat the bosses to further your objective bonus for those two. As I said, I am going big into the expedition farming. A lot of this stuff is all expedition nodes. I have the big expedition, pretty much everything the expedition has to offer I have gotten, except for the small one down here, which is just the 4% chance to contain an expedition encounter. I have been buying a ton of the expedition scarabs, the polished mostly. If I find the gildeds, great. I don't want to spend the extra 20 chaos per gilded expedition scarab. I would rather just buy the 10 polished expedition scarabs for 70 chaos apiece, then pay 70 chaos for 5 of the gildeds. The difference between the two is the area contains 25% increased number of runic monster markers. Your gildeds give you 50%, no big deal. I get a ton of logbooks from this strategy. Offer received for my fusers. I will go ahead and sell those for the 4 divines. So, my logbooks, me and my friends have probably ran upwards of 30 expeditions. This is pretty much what's left over. It's all mostly Gwenin. I did pick up a few Tujins yesterday when we were farming. Just kind of saving all my Gwenins for end of league to try to get that big Mage Blood roll. Maybe roll it over into standard. Maybe sell it and just have some big currency. Who knows if I even hit it. I did cancel out everything else except for Expedition. I run Expedition Scarabs in all of my maps, so I am guaranteed the Expedition. I don't necessarily care for much else of this. I do enjoy Heist, but it's not as profitable as Expedition. Canceled it out just to get that extra notable. All these are notables on either side, so these all add to your map pack increase through your grand design. No legions, no expeditions, no abyss, no breach. I ended up getting your master notables here. I don't run into them too often, but all the notables increase the pack size, which in the end is exactly what I'm after. I did go into some of the strongbox stuff just because the strongbox, has a high chance to drop 6 links. I have found, at least for me, I get a ton of fusers now from the 6 links that the strongboxes drop. I did get both of the big strongbox ones, so the corrupted rares, that's just where pretty much all of the 6 links drop from, as well as the operative strongbox. This is a huge thing for scarabs. This will help you sustain your scarabs, whether or not you want to run them, whether or not you want to sell them. I get a ton of my gilded scarabs out of the operative strongbox for Expedition. The Labyrinth. I chose to go with the Labyrinth just for the chance at an improved offering. I believe some of the improveds right now are going for about 50 chaos apiece with the nerf to harvest. If I get in there and I see it, you'll know if it's improved because the little ascendancy portal that you go through to get to the trial for your fragment will say offers an improved offering to the goddess. If it says offers an offering to the goddess, I don't even run it. But if it says improved, I go in there and I pick it up immediately. Excuse me, running a little parched here. The Pact with Energy stuff, I got into just a small amount of Delve, mostly because it was right here off of my small nodes, which are just my means to an end. I do really enjoy running Delve. It's not as profitable this league as it has been in previous leagues, but it's a great source of XP. It's a great source of bubblegum currency, and it's overall just fun for me. I just really enjoy the Delve. I love running the darkness, getting those resonator pops, finding the opulent chests, things like that. Tons of maps out of there now. Delve is just something I really do enjoy. I've enjoyed it since I started Path of Exile. The Kirak stuff, again, just the notables, not something that I was targeting. I got the higher map chance and the completion chances on both sides. Just the chance to be a tier higher was pretty nice for me. I come up here, you know, I get some of the shrine stuff. Shrines in the maps are beautiful, especially with the random additional effect. These will help your clear immensely. I know if I get an impenetrable shrine, it bumps my ES up to around 15.8 thousand energy shield. The acceleration shrine is always nice. The gloom shrines, if you roll your sextants, are always nice. So more expedition stuff. The increased number of runic monsters through this is nice. The base percentage for logbooks is huge, so this stacks with the expedition stuff. I'm always on the lookout for the remnants that say 50% increase of expedition logbook drops by monsters, which stacks. I have gotten a couple expeditions that had 2 of them, so I had 150% quantity of logbooks. I believe in those. I've walked away with 3. One time I had 4 logbooks out of just 1 expedition, which was huge. Just some of the beast stuff. Again, I'll throw beasts in my map because I have a ton of the Einhar missions. And why not? You know, you're getting a chance at your Feral's Fur, you're getting a chance at your split beasts. The remove add is always nice for any kind of spare crafting or profit crafting that you may want to be doing. Incursion stuff, I mess around with Alva a little bit. I'm not an incursion guy. Typically I'll run it in the beginning of the league just to try to get some nice drops, possibly a vial that might sell for a divine or 2 early in the league. Not something I target farm. I did not go into any of the June, the Immortal Syndicate stuff. Immortal Syndicate is another favorite of mine to run typically, but I've been just having so much fun with Expedition and making just an incredible amount of currency that I've just been throwing away basically because it's just something that I enjoy to do, is throw away currency. I feel like my build's in a good place. I could min-max a lot of stuff if I wanted to, but I'm kind of happy just being able to do the things that I enjoy. I'm not one of those guys that tries to rush to be the first to kill Uber Adziri or Uber Elder or anything like that. I just enjoy farming and just having a good build that feels good to play. And that is my Atlas strategy. Okay then. So, let me put these away and I'll grab a map out of here real fast. Let us run at T16. Let me see if I have any uncorrupted dunes maps. I do. So it's important to always chisel your maps while they're white, because it only takes 4 chisels to get it to quality 20. If it's blue, it'll take 10. If it's yellow, it'll take 20. And then just slap on your alchemy orb. 81% is not terrible. Let's see if we can chaos this up a little higher. 91. The increased damage, which is the mod I was talking about, a flat 25. However many altars I pop during my map could go up immensely. The less effective curses, not really a crazy big deal for me. I don't notice an insane difference. And then let's slap on a Vol Orb. Hope we get a nice juicy roll. 133%. Perfect. This is exactly the kind of map that I look for. This is the exact reason all of my friends almost always refuse to run maps with me. With the pack size base being at 43%, the quantity being 133%, this is huge. I don't typically look too much at the mods. I'm softcore. If I die, I die. As long as I get my expedition and possibly some logbooks, that's really all I care about. Ickers and expedition. The increased area of effect, the move speed, attack speed, cast speed, unique bosses possessed will probably fuck me up, but we shall see. I throw in some expedition scarabs. Looks like I need to buy some more of those. All out of sacrifice fragments. Oh, what do you know? I already have some in here. I'll put those back. I'll go ahead. I'll grab an Einhar scarab because why the hell not? As you can see, I'm currently running the Eater of the Worlds mods. My Sexton mods, I have a Gloom Shrine, I have a no reflected damage, plus the 4 additional packs of mirrored rare monsters. More monsters, more loot, more XP, if you don't die all the time, like I do. The corrupted map bosses drop 2 additional ball items. My maps are always corrupted, always chiseled to 20. And the 25 additional clusters of mysterious barrels, I rolled it, I kept it. I don't know if it's important, I don't know if it does anything crazy or not, I just kept it on there. As you can see, I have all of my things unlocked with some freebies in there. Nothing that I'm too crazy about this league and the map mods through the map device. So let's make sure I have everything up. Let's go ahead, hop in here, and let's see how this does, huh? Console loading times are always fucking forever, but you get used to it after playing for so many years. Monsters right out of the gate, that's always fun. Little lag spike here, so you can see a lag spike. You did see my ES drop a little bit, but still not dead. Eater mobs pop up, or Exarch mods. Got that yellow guy, lag spike. As you can see, we're dealing with some major lags here on console. Just throwing out some Soulrends. You can hear the pops going off in the distance. You know there's still some mobs out there. Not 100% comfortable hitting this altar here yet. A lot of times I use my wither totems as a ward to let me know if there are any enemies nearby. So if we just get out of here, we take a look at the map mods. So at the very bottom you can see 151% increased quantity of items, 68% rarity, and look at that pack size, 83%. So the grand design gave me an extra 40% to my pack size. It almost doubled my pack size from the 43% base when I rolled it. Let's hit this, consecrated ground, armor evasion, blah blah blah. The currency is what I'm after, so I'll flame dash out of there. We'll kill these guys real quick. As you can see, it pretty much one-shots all of these map mobs. Got a red beast over here. We'll go ahead, we'll take him out. So you can see his health is falling fairly quick. Like I said, it's nothing insane, but it is enough to get the job done. Just got to stick and move a little bit. He's dead. Let's wait for Einhar to do his job. Some free jewelers are always nice. So you can see how quickly my energy shield is going back up. That is from the recharge rate and the faster start of recharge. It ping pongs around quite a bit. I am able to take a fair amount of damage before I actually die. Typically it's a lot of damage coming in at once, or a massive one shot from a boss like Shaper, Elder. The Exarch orbs do fuck me up, but as you can see, as long as you're quick on your dashes, as long as you're paying attention, this build blows stuff up. It's not the fastest damage, it's not the speediest mapper, but it survives fairly well and it gets the job done, which is, in the end, what we're after, right? Something that just kind of does the trick, allows us to farm the stuff we enjoy. You can see my mana's not really moving too much at all. It regens itself pretty fast. Occasionally, just out of habit, I do hit the mana flask just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. Tanky red beast. So we're never really in a crazy amount of danger. Occasionally I get sleepy, I get arrogant, I just start flame dashing around. But for the most part, we're not too worried about taking an excessive amount of damage. Let's go ahead and kill the boss real quick. He's possessed. With the Martyr's Grip, hit that ball blight. So he does hit a little hard, but he really only took out, I believe, around 2,000 energy shield there. There's a big savage hit, but you can see how fast my energy shield comes back as soon as I flame dash away. Chaos damage on the ground really does nothing to us. Look at that energy shield recharge. Massive. And look at all these embers. That was off of the one altar. I imagine if I had spent my time and actually farmed up the map to try to get as many altars as I could, he probably would have killed me with that leap that he had hit me with that did some big damage, but he probably would have dropped quite a few more embers as well. But all in all, not the end of the world. We got some good embers, got a good little amount of them, enough to get by. I'm not farming them for profit, I'm not farming them for anything mandatory. Just a couple of things that I'm, just throwing on my gloves, throwing on my boots, just seeing if something sticks. So we have a Gloom Shrine here, so we'll go ahead and clear this out. Just clear all around it. The plan is to pop this expedition here, run for the Gloom Shrine, wait for it to pick up. You can see the AoE of my expedition. Now the important thing with this is that it is very important in the order of your remnants. So you can see I'm looking around for logbooks. There's no logbooks. So we have 50% quantity of artifacts dropped by monsters, which is nice. So we'll drop that first. Now these will apply to all of the monsters. These big skulls on a spike are your runic monsters. These are your logbook droppers. So these remnants will apply to every single one of these I get after that point, so forth and so forth. The currency will apply to every runic monster that I allocate from this point on. The immune to chaos damage, we are chaos damage, so we do not want them to be immune to our damage, or I'll have to call in my buddy and he'll have to show you what a real build looks like. More currency, more runic monsters. It's important to try to get these as bundled up as you could. May take a little time, just kind of playing around with it and getting a feel for the radius of your explosives. As you can see, it lights up a tiny bit of green. If you look at this remnant here, you can see it light up a little bit of green. As soon as I go away, that tent goes away. So I don't really care about jewelry, so I'll just try and get as many of these runic monsters in here as I possibly can. With my last two. So you can see there's no color change in that runic monster. You can see he's kind of lit up bright green, so I already got him. I'll pick up these two here. And I will pick up, let's see if I can find any better ones. Doesn't look like it. Some chests, some monster, increased XP, no big deal. There's some more currency. So I'll go ahead and reroute this one to be here. I did get the chaos damage one in that, which we don't want. So I'll go ahead and keep an eye on it. I'll allocate that. Allocate this. Still have 3 left. I have a pretty good range through my Atlas passives. I'll go ahead and come around here. See if I can't get all 3 of these runics, which I can. I have 1 left, which allows me to get these 2 over here. Pick up this map. Always check your mods. I can't be shocked. Impale's no big deal. I can't be chilled. They can't be chilled, frozen, ignited, or shocked. No big deal. I'm not doing any of that. They penetrate my chaos resistance. No big deal. I have enough energy shield. The currency, 50% for additional currency, increased XP, artifacts. Unfortunately, no logbooks. So I'll detonate this, beeline it out here. You can see how fast I am when I activate my Quicksilver flasks. Throw out your ward totems. You can see them start to cast when enemies are nearby. Lets you know that you're in range. Explosives are starting to go off around me. As you can see, it allows you to keep a fairly safe distance from the enemies. Just throw out some totems, see if there's anything close. My wither totems are not detecting. You can see the little purple on the ground. So I'll just start flinging my Soulrends in that direction. As you can see, my cast speed's not terrible. It's not the greatest, but it's not terrible. Able to take some decent shots. Expedition is a very, very rippy mechanic. Not as rippy as Scourge, of course. I'm not a fan of the new Beyond rework, but I wasn't a fan of old Beyond either. So as you can see, very safe, standing off in a distance, just throwing them off screen, listening for the pops, watching my wither totems, seeing where they cast, and just kind of throwing my Soulrends out into the abyss and letting them do what they do best, which is explode these mobs. And just like that, our expedition is over. Pick up all these, pop all these chests. And continue about a full clear of the map. Again, the wither totems, not mandatory during mapping. I use them more as a ward, like I said, just to kind of see if there's mobs nearby. But you can see the clear. I'm not zooming around super fast in their face, popping them. More standing off in the distance, letting my stuff just go off screen and clear before I even get there. Beasts, typically no problem whatsoever. See their health melt. And you can be fairly aggressive with this if you so choose. As you can see, I'm able to take a decent amount of damage from these mob packs. Soulrend kind of blows them up really before you one-pop them. Or before they one-pop you, even if you get caught out a little bit. So unfortunately only one altar. I was unable to show you exactly how rippy it was. 9 monsters left. Go ahead and get out of this, call it a wash. Pop this chest, never know where a mirror is going to drop. Although I highly doubt I will ever see a mirror drop in my PoE career. I have yet to, and I highly doubt I ever will. But fingers always crossed, right? So, got the gear, we got the gems, we got the passive tree, the ascendancy, we got my Atlas strat, and map showcase. If there's any questions, feel free to go ahead and leave a comment. Otherwise, stay safe out there, guys. It's a crazy world we live in. Just keep on keeping on. Stay safe, Exile.